room up there, Lisa?
I think so.
All right.
Lots of microphones today. Thank you. Are we all ready? Everybody here?
Hold on.
Just let me know. Okay. Everybody ready? All right. Good morning, and I'd like to thank all of you for attending this very important press conference to get the word out on the dangerous repercussions if Proposition 57 passes on November 8th. Before I begin, I would like to introduce the people that are standing here beside me and behind me. My name is Lisa Green. I'm the Kern County District Attorney. To my right is well, let me start with the Sheriff, Sheriff Donny Youngblood. To his right is David Kessler, who is the president of KLEA, Kern County Law Enforcement Association. And then to my left is Michael Caves, who works in my office and is the president of the Kern County Prosecutors Association. I'm going to begin talking to you about Proposition 57 and the so-called Public Safety and Rehabilitation Act, and tell you that if Proposition 57 passes, it will overturn nearly 4 decades of public safety initiatives that have been passed by the voters of California, initiatives that have improved our ability to serve victims in our state. The proposition would allow tens of thousands of violent, dangerous, and career criminals to be released early. The proposition is billed as the Public Safety and Rehabilitation Act, but it is anything but that. It is billed as being designed to release nonviolent offenders from prison, and nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, one of the initial authoring problems with this initiative is that it doesn't define the term nonviolent felons. So because of that loophole, if that's what you want to call it, or poor draftsmanship, there are numerous crimes that I'm going to just recite a small fraction of to you that would be considered nonviolent. Some of those crimes involve membership in a criminal street gang, assault with a deadly weapon, assault with force likely to cause great bodily injury, battery with serious bodily injury, numerous hate crimes, some human trafficking crimes, sexual assault of an unconscious person, sexual assault of a person who is basically impaired by rape by intoxication, taking a hostage. I mean, the list goes on and on. Felony child endangerment of children under the age of 18, felony elder abuse of elders over the age of 65. They're all, they would be defined as non-violent felonies if this initiative passes. The list is actually much longer. There's hundreds of other crimes. Who would make the decision about whether someone should be paroled? Well, that decision wouldn't be made by judges who at sentencing make informed decisions based on an individual's background, based on the facts of the case, based on the seriousness of the crimes, based on so many factors. They would, in fact, sentence these very dangerous offenders to state prison, but once they got to prison, after they completed their base term, so to speak, they would be eligible to be paroled by basically California Department of Correction and Rehabilitation employees, by political appointees of the governor. They could decide that this person has enrolled in a class. They may not have taken the class, and then they will find that they are eligible for parole, even though it was perhaps a lengthy sentence. We all know that here in the Central Valley, crime statistics have been on the rise over the last few years since the passage of AB 109, since the governor signed that into law in 2011. And we know that many what have been referred to as low-level offenders have been already released from prison. There are no more low-level or nonviolent offenders left in state prison. This initiative would basically take the worst career criminals and treat them like first-time offenders. The initiative overturns key provisions of the Victims' Rights Bill that was an initiative passed in 1982. It overturns Marsy's Law, which gave victims rights at sentencing and basically said inmates couldn't be released because of prison overcrowding. It overturns the recently passed, in 2012, Californians Against Sexual Exploitation Act, which deals with human trafficking. That initiative was passed by California voters by 81%. If Proposition 57 passes, it will basically it will overturn that initiative that was passed by 4/5 of California voters. It will also overturn key provisions of the Gang Violence and Juvenile Crime Prevention Act. These are all measures that have been enacted by California voters over the last 35 years to protect victims, make communities safer, and ensure that victims have justice. I would like to leave you with just one case example from Kern County, one particular case, how that could be impacted if Proposition 57 passes. And it's the case of Lloyd Killebrew. Mr. Killebrew was convicted in 2013 of felony domestic violence, inflicting a traumatic condition. And that is one of the crimes that is considered nonviolent under Governor Brown's initiative. Mr. Killebrew was convicted of a felony domestic violence with corporal injury and also of inflicting great bodily injury on his partner. And he also had priors for assault with a deadly weapon, transportation of cocaine, and possession of marijuana for sale, as well as the felony resisting of a police officer. He was sentenced in 2013 by a judge who had heard all the facts of a trial to 25 years in state prison. He's serving that sentence now. It's a sentence that he's earned for a lifetime of criminal activity. If Governor Brown's initiative passes, he would be eligible now, not now, in a year. He would be eligible after he'd served 4 years, which is the base term of the corporal injury on his partner. He would be eligible for parole after 4 years, and that decision would be made by an employee of the California Department of Corrections, overruling the wise and considered decision of a Superior Court judge here in Kern County. I'm going to introduce and turn the podium over now to Sheriff Donny Youngblood, and the other individuals will then speak, and then at the conclusion of our comments, we will be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. As you all recall, we started down this road of non-accountability with realignment. Then we were sold a bill of goods on Prop 47, which was the Safe Neighborhoods and Safe Schools Act, which did everything except that. We've seen our crime rate just explode because of Proposition 47. And now we have Prop 57, which is another initiative to help people get out of prison and not hold them accountable. If you just look at our state prisons, you will be sold a bill of goods that's full of people that are nonviolent. It's full of people that are marijuana smokers, and that is absolutely not true. There are no nonviolent people in our state prisons. To get to state prison, you must understand, you must be an overachiever. You must commit a crime over and over and over again. You're sentenced to the county level over and over again. Finally, at some point in your criminal career, a judge says enough is enough, you're going to state prison. That is who is in state prison. They will talk to you about they're in for a nonviolent offense, but they won't talk to you about the history of that particular inmate and the violence that has occurred throughout their lifetime. The prisons are not full of people that are nonviolent. What happens when we release these people early, and which is what we're doing? All we're doing is creating victims. We know that 70% of the people that we release are going to reoffend. That means 70% of the time a new victim is going to be in our community because of our actions. That's totally unacceptable. When you commit crimes over and over and over again, you know what your penalty should be. This isn't a secret. This will have an impact on three strikes law. When you have people that commit three violent felonies, how many victims are we going to allow? How many chances are we going to give someone to change their life? Now, we do have programs in prisons and in county jails that will help people do that. And we do believe that some of those people will take advantage of that. But we know it's not going to be a large percentage, that number is not going to be large. So as we go down this road and you look at Prop 57, ask yourself, do I want to have more victims in our community? Do I not want to hold criminals responsible for their actions? We saw yesterday the President of the United States released and commuted sentences again with people that have gun charges. And we're putting these people back on the streets to create more victims. And I think it's our responsibility to stand up and say enough is enough. Thank you. And I now introduce Mike from the DA's office.
Good morning. I'm Michael Caves. I'm the president of the Kern County Prosecutors Association. And I'm here on behalf of my association to urge all of you in the room and all the viewers at home and all the voters in California to vote no on Proposition 57. Simply put, as has been discussed by our elected district attorney and our elected sheriff, there's no greater risk to public safety than this proposition. There's no question in the mind of prosecutors and in anyone who's actually read this initiative, there's absolutely no question that this is a significant risk to public safety and to all victims in California, past, present, and future. This proposition would effectively reduce the informed, lawful sentencing decision of a trial court judge to lip service, to make that a legal fiction. And it asks the victims in California to pay such a high price when they've already done that. Our members in the Kern County Prosecutors Association work tirelessly every single day in court to vindicate the rights of victims and to protect society's most vulnerable members. And this proposition would undercut those efforts. Make no mistake, when you go to the polls in November, if you're voting for Proposition 57, you're voting for re-victimization in California. Thank you.
Good morning. David Kessler. I'm president of Kern Law Enforcement Association. We represent 500 deputy sheriffs and district attorney investigators in Kern County. On November 8th, citizens of this great state are going to have the opportunity to cast a vote in a historic election. This liberty is a founding principle of our great nation. Some liberties, the same liberties that law enforcement protects on a daily basis. We're out there protecting you to keep you safe at night. This proposition is going to change that. If you don't vote no on this proposition, criminals are going to be out on the street more than ever. In November 2014, voters had their opportunity to pass Proposition 47, which they did. It was sold to us as safe schools and neighborhoods. Since then, we have learned that our schools are not safer, our neighborhoods are not safer. Crime is up, homicides are doubled in this county, property crimes are skyrocketing, and every crime across the board is on the rise. Don't be sold another bill of goods. This isn't going to protect you any further. If we want safe schools, safe neighborhoods, then you have to hold the criminals accountable. The people that are out there preying on you guys while you sleep is not going to help us. Just yesterday, I read an article in the Washington Post about how easy it is to buy drugs in our city. This is not the county we want to be known for, and this is not the state we want to be known for. Letting more criminals out onto the streets will allow it more ease, more violent crimes, and more people being victimized by these people. County sheriffs are on the forefront of change. Law enforcement, as we noted, is changing on a daily basis. We're keeping up with it. We have programs, classes for these inmates to change the way they behave, to help them along to become productive citizens within our county. We're on the forefront of that right now in this county. By releasing these inmates without any supervision, without any accountability, we'll change that. We have to hold them accountable. The estimates are upwards of 25,000 people are eligible for release, early release, if this passes. That is 25,000 more criminals preying on you, citizens of California, as they sleep, 25,000 more chances for violent encounter with them, 25,000 more chances for your home to be broken into while you're at work, and 25,000 more chances to become a victim just walking down the street. This is not the way to change the criminal justice system. Judges, lawyers, prosecutors, and law enforcement are there to protect you. We're there every day out there on the streets, chasing down the criminals, holding them accountable for their actions. We need to make sure that they are held accountable for their actions. So join us, Kern Law Enforcement Association, law enforcement across the state, and our elected officials, and vote no on Prop 57. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll open it up to questions. If you want to ask a specific person the question, then please.
I have a question, but I don't know to whom to put it.
Okay.
Lisa's fine.
Does this proposition also have something to do with handling of juvenile offenders? And if so, does your group take a position on that?
Yes, that is one aspect of the initiative that basically takes away, they're not calling them fitness hearings anymore, they're calling them transfer hearings. And it restores to the judge the ability to make decisions about whether some juveniles will be tried as an adult or a juvenile. It kind of goes back to the way it was prior. I can't tell you the year, but if that was the only piece of this initiative, I don't believe that that would really be an issue. I don't think we'd be standing here today speaking against the initiative.
So you don't have a problem with that part of it?
I can speak only for myself, but actually no.
And then some of the people who have argued for Prop 57 have said, you know, we have prison overcrowding, we have a lot of people who are nonviolent offenders in prisons, and we also have a problem in Kern County with the budget. So releasing them from prison is actually a cheaper option. What would be anyone's response to that?
Well, the prisons aren't overcrowded anymore. AB 109 and 47 has taken care of that. We're actually below the federally mandated levels. But do you want to address that, Donny?
Well,
the other piece of that?
You're absolutely right. It is cheaper. It's a lot cheaper. If we just didn't patrol the streets, if we didn't patrol the streets at night, it would be cheaper. If we didn't put people in prison that hurt people, it would be cheaper. But the cost of public safety is expensive. And yes, we have a budget problem in this county, but that doesn't negate our obligation to protect the public. So the cost is not the driving force. It's the victims that are the driving force.
How frustrating is it for both of your departments when you guys do the work? A deputy maybe risks his or her life making an arrest. You guys do the paperwork, do the legwork, do the prosecution, just so you guys are forced to turn around and let that person back out on the street after doing your job, basically.
We have a tendency to take one day at a time and one event at a time. We don't live in the past. Whatever happens to someone, it happens. If you get wrapped up in that frustration, you won't last 30 years in this job. But what people don't understand is in the middle of the night at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, a deputy sheriff alone responds to a call for service in the backwoods of Fraser Park with someone with a gun, and when you read it, it doesn't sound all that bad. But I challenge you to live it. Go on a ride along, and you'll find out that it's a very frightening event, and that occurs over and over and over. We're having a shooting every second or third day in this county. The violent events are just skyrocketing. And I would ask the public to take a look around your neighborhoods. And have you noticed the difference in the clientele of people walking your neighborhoods? Of course you have. That's a direct relation to Prop 47, realignment, and now Prop 57.
Which areas in Kern County do you believe would be more impacted by an increase of violence due to Proposition 57?
Well, of course, in the neighborhood that I live, East Bakersfield, we have a lot of violence there because it's not a upper-class neighborhood. But if you go on the other side of the freeway and talk to people, you'll find out that they are also seeing this influx of people that are committing crimes, that are knocking on the doors in the middle of the day when nobody's there. They don't get an answer. They kick the door in, and in a matter of 2 or 3 minutes, they get the most valuable things out of your house. That's not uncommon today. It used to be front-page news when somebody got shot. It's now page 8, if there's anything, because we've become immune to it. So this is some pretty serious stuff.
And do you have any idea of how many Kern County inmates would be eligible to be released under this?
I don't.
That's a very good question, and as the sheriff was speaking, I thought I should have checked that. So if you want to call my office later this afternoon, I can supply you with that information. Anybody else?
I have a question. I wanted to know how you feel about AB 2888 that's on Governor Brown's desk now, and if he signs it, it would make it mandatory for anyone who commits rape by intoxication to serve prison time. So I want to know how you feel about that, in contrast to Prop 57, which would be giving those same offenders the opportunity to be released early.
And so you understand that even though that bill's on the governor's desk, and having prosecuted the first rape of an unconscious person due to date rape drugs, having prosecuted the first case in Kern County in 2004, and that individual went to prison for 8 years, I feel that the governor should sign that bill. However, it's important that you understand that regardless of whether he signs that bill or not and it makes prison as a punishment, it will still not be a violent, it will not be, there has to be an amendment of the penal code to designate it as a violent felony in order for it to be spared from Proposition 57. So.
How are you all going to educate your community, especially the Hispanic community, where many people is registered to vote this November about this proposition?
Well, I can only, I'll have the sheriff address that, but for myself, I'm certainly willing and will, speak at any, service groups or anybody who wants me to talk about the dangers of Proposition 57, I'm happy to do that, and I will do that. So that would be my response. Sheriff?
Yeah, and we do events like this. We talk to the media a lot about these issues because it is important. We don't target any particular neighborhood any more than the other. We think that every community member is important, and every community member out there needs to know that their neighborhood is going to be impacted by Prop 57. Anybody else?
Well, thank you all again for coming. We appreciate it very much. Have a nice day.
Sheriff and Melissa, can I just get one comment with each of you on this?
Yep.
Let's do Donnie first because the sheriff.
Yeah, better now than earlier.
Derek in the middle? That would have made the cut.
No, like next week, and then say a couple weeks. I'll just call you. Yes, I'm sleeping.
We think we have a place.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you a specific question, Lisa.
One of the issues non-violent crimes are not defined. So who's deciding that what are wrong? Yeah, it's actually hard
Is there any more